Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa, khususan ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa azwajihi wa dhurriyyatihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله. وقال الله تعالى في مقام آخر: إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم. صدق الله مولانا العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم. فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في شان حبيبه مخبرا وآمرا: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد معدن الجود والكرم وآله وبارك وسلم وصل عليه. My respected elders, brothers, sisters and listeners of Radio Dawn, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There was a very interesting news the other day on BBC. And the news was that in the world, out of every 4 people, 1 is a Muslim. 1.56 billion people on this earth are Muslims. And this was a report done by a very big American research company. Over the last 3 years, a very big research over the last 3 years, which led to this finding. People were thinking it was much less than that, but this is the actual number, 1.56 billion. Christians are 2.1 billion, Hindus 900 million. There are 38 million Muslims in Eastern and Western Europe, and perhaps nearly 5 million in America. Very large numbers, alhamdulillah. And last week, I had a privilege of visiting Bosnia for a 7-day trip. It was a study trip along with another 5 Muslims and 7 Christians. The idea was to find out what British Muslims and Christians can do to help this beleaguered European country, which is facing huge problems, and there has been a civil war that cost lives of thousands of people, and particularly Muslims, and of course those awful massacres of Srebrenica as well. And so it was an interesting trip for me. I'd been looking forward to this for many, many years actually. I'd been planning that I should really visit Bosnia. It's a Muslim European country. Muslims came to Bosnia about 600 years ago. Now let me be accurate, Muslims didn't come to it, but the Turks conquered it and the Bosnians converted to Islam. Okay, so these are indigenous people, not outsiders. Okay, they are people from Slavs actually, that's what they are Slavs in their nationality. And they embraced Islam. So for 600 years, this country has been a Muslim country. And since 1948 till 91, it was under communist rule, and as a consequence, most of the mosques were either destroyed, shut, and the ulama, and the scholars and teachers of Islam were either expelled or quieted and could not preach Islam openly. And perhaps because of that today, I'm going to give you some statistics, and these statistics are there actually to help us understand the situation. A lot of the time, when we don't have statistics, we can be very inaccurate about our generalizations and conclusions. Statistics help us actually to be a bit more focused and careful about our generalizations. Last week I was praying in Bosnia in one of the largest mosques in Tuzla. It houses about 1,500 namazis at most. And it was about 3/4 full. And out of these perhaps 1,000 or 1,100 people, 1,200 people, there was I could only see one person who had a proper beard. There was no one else who had a proper beard. Okay, out of 1,200 people. At the end of the namaz, 2/3 of the people immediately walked out without even praying sunnah. And only about 1/3 stayed behind to pray sunnah, and then they do zikr and they stayed for that. And in the whole country, I was told, I was with the Grand Imam was taking me around, and he said that we have perhaps about 15% who actually pray Jummah out of the whole country. It's only about 15%. What do you think is the percentage here in England? Anybody like to have a guess? My own estimate is around about 80%. 80% of the British Muslims pray there, Jummah. And in Bosnia about 50. Yes, 15% at most. And that just gives you, and this actually tied well together when the Grand Imam told us about 80% actually drink alcohol and do all sorts of haram things because they just don't know. So it actually fits with that sort of figure as well, that those people who come to Jummah, they are ones who know what is halal and haram, okay? And just about know perhaps the very basics of their deen. I'm not here trying to criticize the Bosnian, really. I'm trying to bring a point out, a very important lesson that we need. And this is why I'm quoting you figures, rather than giving my conclusion. I'm giving you the real figures. And it's for us to reflect and think what has gone wrong in that country. I went to one of their oldest masjid in Sarajevo, the Ghazi Hussain mosque. He was the first person who built this mosque in the 15th century. It's a very beautiful small mosque, houses about 200, 300 namaz at most. Very beautiful. His mazar is next to the masjid. And opposite it is the madrasa. Now, they have 6 madrasas in the whole of the country, just 6 madrasas for 14 to 19-year-old. And the idea is these are youngsters who they think will become the future imams and religious scholars and leaders. So they only have around about 2,000 students in those, from 14 to 19-year-olds. Then they have 2 colleges for 19 to plus. These are degree colleges where they can study Islam. And in those 2 degree colleges, they have about 300-400 students who study there. So you can just imagine what a small number is actually learning the deen. They don't have any Muslim schools as we have Muslim schools, or at least I'm trying to set up one, and here Muslims sadly of Nottingham certainly are not listening and not paying attention. And you can see your future. I want to show you what the future will be. If we do not have our education institutions, we do not have our schools, and if we don't care about our deen, then I would really urge, I hope I can take a group of you to Bosnia and say that perhaps in 30 years, British Muslims will be like this as well. May Allah protect us. But that is the situation, and those 80% really have no sense of modesty or haya or of how to, what is proper way of dress for a Muslim either. Yet they call themselves Muslims, which is, again, I find it quite strange, but that is the situation that, we are faced with. They have some very good things as well. For example, on the Jummah, before the khatib actually stood up, they do the khutbah exactly like we do here. For the first, after the first azan, They do their sunnahs. The imam says, pray your sunnahs, everybody does the sunnah. Then the second azan goes, the khatib stands up to and does his khitab, which is for about 15 to 20 minutes, no longer than that. Okay, just like we are doing it here. But by the first azan, nearly 80–90% of the congregation was there. By second azan, it was full, and everybody was there. So when the imam does the second azan, they're all there. And of course, this is some good British, some good European traits in them, that they are people who are punctual. So they do have some good qualities of being punctual. The 6 madrasas, I went to 2 of them, one Tuzla. The Tuzla madrasa is one of the most beautiful Muslim schools I've ever seen. It really is. It's very beautiful masjid, very beautiful library, classrooms, teachers, and it's a madrasa which Muslim hands actually helped to build. It was built some 400 years ago. It was destroyed and it was rebuilt, and the Muslim hands during the war helped to, in the 92–93 period, we helped them to build that. It's one of the most beautiful. I will be showing you hopefully a slideshow sometime later on in the month on that if anybody wants to see that. So they have some very good things like that. The quality of the madrasas was really amazing. The 2 university colleges was also a very good high standard. And you could see the cleanliness, the orderliness in them. What I want to say is, those 15% who are good Muslims, practicing Muslims, alhamdulillah, are people to be admired. Okay, they really are. And then they have something historic, because this was under the Ottomans. What has happened is, over these 600 years, they've developed a very clear hierarchical system. The Sultan used to appoint the Ra'isul Ulama, or Shaykh al-Islam, the top alim, and he then used to appoint regional muftis. So they've got 12 regions, and each region has its top mufti. And under the mufti is the grand imam. And under the grand imam are all the imams of that area, that town. They work under the grand imam. So they have a very good system there, which is very similar actually to the Christian system here, the Church of England, exactly. You have the archbishop, you have the bishops, then you have the archdeacon, then you have the priests. It's a very good system of linking together and working together and developing. I spent 2 days with the Mufti and the Grand Imam, so I learned a lot about it. I will be, inshallah, publishing my article on their madrasa system very soon, and also on the way they've organized their religious affairs. But I hope, at the same time, you can see these people were not allowed to teach deen, and as a consequence, they lost in a big way. And I really do, one of the biggest lessons that we British Muslims can learn from them is we better improve our education system. And this is something I've been saying for the last 12–15 years to brothers and sisters here, but very few are listening. That, we need to have our own nurseries, primary schools, secondary schools. I know it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. We've been running them and we've failed it sometimes. But alhamdulillah, I'm really encouraged that we can at least do a few things. We can run our own nurseries and primary schools. And what we need to do is to be getting the state to help us as well, become voluntary aided schools. That is my ambition, but I cannot actually go to the state and to the local education authority and the council and say to them, Muslims must have their own school. When the Muslim community is not cooperating, when it's not interested. At Nottingham Islamic Primary School, we have room for 100 children, but we only have 50-odd children. There's space already there, and I'm just asking and begging Muslims, for the sake of your own, future generations, please, think seriously. And if you don't believe me, I really do urge you, and you Muslims here, who are serious about their deen and their future generations and their children, what is going to happen to them if their iman is not strong? And strong iman comes through having pride in yourself. What we do, for example, at Islamic school, one of the biggest things we are doing is giving those children a sense of pride and belonging. This is one thing I'm noticing. Those who are not associated with Islam, with the Muslim community, with Muslim institutions, really don't feel any sense of indebtedness in sense of, why should I bother about them? Today, this is why we can't find people to work and do Islamic work, because, well, what have they done for me? What has the Muslim community done for me? Why should I bother with it? Well, I can only put forward to you, we're trying to establish something, and if you people don't help, well, you will be the biggest losers. And really, it is a very serious matter. When I was in Bosnia, I was reflecting on this situation, that these people today, for 600 years, they have been Muslims. They've produced some of the greatest ulama, some of the greatest youth. They've got a great system. But what has happened to them today? Because for 2 generations, they had lost. They were not able to teach their children. And today, they don't even know what is halal and haram, brothers. And our children, I think in another 2 generations, will be as lost as that. But the loss here will be even greater, I think. Not only that they won't know what is halal and haram, they could be falling into crime in a big way. And we all already know that when people become ghettoized and they lose their sense of belonging, they don't have a sense of belonging to us or to the bigger system here, then they are lost people. So I really do urge you, brothers and sisters, to reflect deeply on that. On the one hand, we have this great news that 1 out of every 4 people is Muslim. 1 out of every 4 person is a Muslim. That's a great news. But remember what Rasulullah ﷺ said in a very moving hadith. He said, time will come when the people of the world will pounce on you like the hungry lot pounces on a dinner table. Just like starving people pounce upon food, that is how people will pounce upon the Muslims. And the disciples asked, will that be because we will be small in numbers? And Rasulullah ﷺ replied, no, that it will not be the reason. The reason, at that time, you will be like the foam on the sea. Your number will be vast. Your number will be very big. But what will happen, there will be wahan. People will have the people will not have any respect for you. You will not be respected by humanity. You will not have any standing. And they asked, why would that be? And he said, because of wahan. And they asked, explain what wahan is. Wahan literally means actually weakness. And he said, حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا وَقَرَاهِيَةُ الْمَوْتِ. It will be love of the world and it will be dislike of the hereafter. That will be the reason. And perhaps today, we have actually fallen into this trap of dunya. We love the world, materialism, consumerism, hedonism, narcissism, self-centeredness has become our way of life. We've forgotten that we are here for a great reason, for a great purpose. We are here to worship Allah and prepare ourselves for the hereafter, and to live a life that is according to the way of Allah and the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is the real problem, perhaps. And we invite you again, brothers, to think and reflect. Let me just remind those brothers who have just come very late that I've come back from Bosnia, a country that some of us might look down on in some ways. That what sort of Muslims are they? That their daughters, 80% of them don't wear skirts, don't have any sense of hijab or what is right and wrong. What can you give us that they have, that we don't have? Well, one thing I can give you, brothers here in Nottingham and British Muslims, is that at least they come on time for their Jummah. They were there a good half an hour before the actual Jamaat of Jummah, which was exactly 1:30. And as I said, more than 80% were there by 1 o'clock. By the time the second azan had gone, more than 90% were already sitting, waiting for their khatib to actually address them. Did you hear that? The khatib too? They were waiting. What were they doing? They wanted to listen. They wanted to learn. And this is one of the beauties of European, alhamdulillah, part of the world. These people are disciplined. When are we going to be disciplined, brothers? We've learned from them how to be materialistic and consumer. We've learned from them how to love the world. When are we going to learn some good things from them as well? Can I ask you, when are we going to learn some good habits as well, of being punctual, of being meticulous, of being industrious, of being loyal, of being, faithful? When are we going to learn some of those good qualities as well? I really do urge those brothers who have come very late that, you are supposed to be here. This is a sign of organized people. Perhaps they have been beaten, and that's why they are feeling that they need to be organized. Brothers, we do need to be organized, and one of those signs will be that you are punctual. Friday congregation, look, if there was a non-Muslim observing you here, looking at you, what would he say? That this khutbah is of wajib part, 20 minutes at least, or 25 minutes, is wajib. And the Muslims don't care about it. They will walk in when they want to walk in. And they really don't look forward to listening to their khatib. And what do you think the khatib will be thinking? No wonder my standard is going down, to be honest. Yes, it reflects your standards. I am really a reflection of you. Al-mu'minu mir'atul mu'min, the Prophet said. The Muslim is a reflection of his brothers. If you see bad things in me, it's actually a reflection of everybody there. If you want me to be good, you have to reflect those goodnesses in you, brothers. Again, I really do urge you to please be here on time. Show that. We do the azan, the second azan is done at around about 35 past. Can we be here at half past so that you can take part in your sunnahs and be here on time? Is that okay, everybody? Sure. And do reflect on what we said about the Bosnians. That would be a real lesson for us, inshallah, Aziz, that if you want to avoid that kind of fate. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.